Thank you all for joining us for this panel today with Illinois Humanities, the Richard H. Driehaus Foundation, and the Gaylord and Dorothy Donnelly Foundation. Let me let someone into the room. My name is Tanya Calvin. I use they, them pronouns, and I'm the Community Engagement Archivist at the Black Metropolis Research Consortium. I am a light-skinned Black person with short Black curly hair. I'm wearing clear rimmed glasses and a gray sweater, and I'm sitting in front of a yellow wall and some colorful artwork behind me. If you don't already know about the BMRC, we are a Chicago-based membership association of libraries, universities, museums, community and arts organizations, and other archival institutions. Our mission is to connect all who seek to document, share, understand, and preserve Black experiences. And our vision is to be essential to promoting the discovery, preservation, and use of Black historical collections. Today, we have presentations from the organizations that I just mentioned, with Ellen Placey Wadey from the Donnelly Foundation, Mark Hallett from Illinois Humanities, and Zachary Whittenberg from the Driehaus Foundation. We will be taking questions in the form of breakout rooms after the three presentations. So I will set up breakout rooms for each Ellen, Zach, and Mark, and you'll be able to self-select which room you can go into that room and ask each person whatever questions you may have. Each breakout room session will be about 15 minutes long, and so I will give a warning when the 15 minutes are up, and you can feel free to switch yourself in and out of the rooms. If you need help doing that, you can just let me know and I can help you. But otherwise, I can also place you into a room if that's easier. Yeah, I think that's all I have for introductions. So without further ado, I'm going to hand off to Ellen Placey Wadey, the program director with the Chicago Artistic Vitality and Collections at the Gaylord and Dorothy Donnelly Foundation. And I have Ellen's presentation actually, so I'm going to share my screen.
Great, thank you so much, Tanya. And it's really great to see some new faces and some faces that are familiar, and welcome to see you. My name is Ellen Wadey. I am getting used to being a 60-year-old woman. How'd that happen? With short gray hair that's really in need of a haircut right now. I'm wearing a black and brown leopard print dress, and I'm sitting in a room that has a white wall in the distance, black carpeting, and a blue long sofa in the background. And I'm a white woman that has light skin, but somehow also manages to be ruddy at the same time. I'm not exactly sure how that happens. So thanks so much, everybody. I'm going to jump right in to just talk about both kind of overall the Gaylord and Dorothy Donnelly Foundation, our collections program, and a little bit about our Chicago Artistic Vitality program. The Donnelly Foundation has been around for about 70 years. We give funds here in the Chicago metro area and also in the low country of South Carolina. Sometimes folks wonder why those two landscapes, and it's because those are both landscapes that are important to the Donnelly family. We offer support in artistic vitality. In Chicago, that means organizations with budgets under $1 million, and I'll give a little bit more about that later. Land conservation, and we also have a collections program. And the name of our collections program is Broadening Narratives. Tanya, if you could go to the next slide. And I know this is a bunch of copy, but we spent a long time trying to figure out what our collection strategy was supposed to be. And I thought the easiest way would be for me to just read through this, because this is really the kind of centering statement, along with a bunch of other pages that describe it about what we do. Museums and libraries ensure that the stories of how we lived, what we valued, how we learned, what we questioned, in other words, why we matter, are preserved, added to, revisited, and reconsidered in context of the past, the present, and the future. But not every story has been told with equal attention, vigor, or respect. Some narratives have been less valued or overlooked because of decisions based consciously or subconsciously on race, gender, sexual identity, educational background, economic or social status, or because they are perceived to be unpopular, divisive, or outside the conventional thinking of the day. The Gaylord and Dorothy Donnelly Foundation's Broadening Narrative strategy encourages museums, libraries, and other collecting institutions to reconsider the narratives that have been excluded, suppressed, or diminished, both in the past and looking forward, with an aim of broadening our collective narratives so that all may be represented and benefit. Broadening Narratives encourages organizations and institutions to animate and expand the narratives told by their collections, and prioritize a wide sharing of diverse narratives. Diverse narratives include the stories and perspectives of culturally specific communities, African Americans, Indigenous peoples, and other people of color, LGBTQ perspectives, working class narratives, small community experiences, as well as other underrepresented groups, viewpoints, and interpretations. And I promise that's the last big block of text I'm going to read. Tanya, if you could move to the next slide. So how does this work with broadening narratives? For one thing, I think what's important and what changed for us is that we are using an expanded definition of a collecting organization. Oftentimes, when you think about collections, people think about museums and they think about libraries, but there are lots of other places that have collections as well. There are union halls, schools, churches, community organizations. Some of them have collections that are over 100 years old, and they are the places that hold the stories of those communities. And so with this new strategy, which we launched this year, we want to include all of those organizations for eligibility for support from our program. The other thing we did is we shifted from an exclusive focus on objects in the collections. That's a more traditional approach to collections. You know, how are you taking care of the things? How are you digitizing things? And that's still important, but we wanted to focus on the narratives that are told with collections. So rather than it just being about objects, it's about stories and the objects that help support those stories. We're also very interested in, these are project-based grants. The range is from $10,000 to $100,000. And a lot of it depends on the kind of project that you're looking to do. But how does the proposed project broaden, correct, or contradict previous narratives and or bring forward overlooked or excluded narratives? And that's, you know, the same language that was just in the statement that I read. We're not looking for stories that are already out there. We're looking for the stories that haven't been told or haven't been told well. And the other thing I will say we really focus on is equity in the partnerships. Oftentimes organizations will come in together. And by equity in the partnerships, the first thing has to do with just how people are being engaged with the project. Let's say a cultural institution wants to come forward and tell stories of their community. They absolutely have the perspective in order to be able to do that. If it's a larger organization that perhaps might have a subject-based expert, but doesn't have the community connection, the first thing we're going to ask them is, who are you working with in the community? And not only, we don't want to hear that the community will be engaged for audience development or for surveys afterwards. The community has to be present at the table from the beginning, involved in the decision making. So again, that's really important to us. And that also goes through to budget calculations. Sometimes organizations will say, well, we're doing, you know, we have staff that we're paying and the other organization might not have staff that they're paying. And so we're incurring most of the costs. But what we're going to look at is the proportion of the work. If two partners are coming together, we want to see that if, you know, they're doing 50-50 in terms of the work or 60-40, the budget should reflect those same percentages. We don't want to see one organization doing half the work and not getting a comparable amount of fund from the budget. Tanya, if you could go to the next slide. So before I get into the process, which is kind of the nuts and bolts, I did want to give a couple of quick examples. And in fact, a couple people are in the room today. This is the first year that we've done this program. We've had 2 cycles. And just to give examples of projects that we've funded, one is we are funding a project at the Haitian American Museum of Chicago. And I saw Carlos is in the room. And that's for them to hire a part-time collection specialist to process and catalog and establish policies and procedures for working with their collections. For small organizations in particular, sometimes what they just need is to know everything that they have and to put together, you know, procedures for how these objects and these materials are going to be worked with. And I remember when talking with Carlos, he said, give me 1 second, I'm going to cough and I don't want to cough in your ear. Okay, there we go. That's what happens when you talk real fast. When I was talking with Carlos, he said, we have people that want to come and partner with us, but we don't know exactly everything that we have. So that's one of the things this strategy covers basically all of the things that can happen with a collection. So it can run the gamut from stabilizing it, taking care of it, cataloging it, digitizing it, metadata, all of the things, but really what we're centering this around are the stories. And so to be able to tell the stories of the Haitian American community in Chicago, this was an important step to be able to do that. Another one, a large organization that we worked with, and actually BMRC is part of this project, is the University of Illinois is doing a mapping project of Chicago Black nurses archives. Provident Hospital was the first Black owned and serving hospital in the city of Chicago. And so this has been an important community in terms of Black nurses and Black healthcare. But the archives are kind of scattered in different institutions across the city. So this project, if people, want to know more about the history of Black nurses, it'll help them see where those archives reside. And then they're also going to do a couple of traveling exhibitions. Another couple quick examples: Bronzeville Black Chicagoan Historical Society. We just awarded grants right before Thanksgiving. And this is to work with a metadata specialist. And again, it's to be able to put the right descriptors around the collection so that as people are looking for things, they'll be able to find them. And then the last example is the Puerto Rican Arts Alliance is doing a project. And this is something that's important. This is a planning project, and we are open to that as well. Sometimes you just need some money to figure out how you're going to go about doing something. And we are completely open to helping folks get the resources to be able to do that. And so that's what this is. They are going to work with ALMA, which is the Association of Latinx Action. It's the only Latinx LGBTQ org in Chicago. And the project itself is going to be about the history of the LGBTQ community in Chicago's Puerto Rican community. But, these two organizations are coming together and they're having to figure out, like, how are we going to work together? What are the things we're going to prioritize? What's our strategy for getting out into the community? And so we're giving them a planning grant for that. Those are examples. Hi, Carlos. You're welcome. You just put something in the chat. The process is, Donnelly likes to be a super relational foundation. For us, it's very important to have conversations and to build trust. We want you to be able to feel like you can come to us with anything. If it's going great, that's awesome. If something's happening, well, we want to hear about that too, because maybe we can help you think through what steps forward could be. So the first thing is to schedule a conversation with me, and there's my email address. It's also on our website, but it's just my first name, ellen@gddf.org. I always say it is go dog dog frog. That tends to stick in people's brains. So that's go dog dog frog. I will say organizations must be either a 501c3, so have nonprofit status, or they need to be fiscally sponsored by a 501c3. So if you're not a 501c3 right now, but you have a relationship with an organization that is, we can make that work. It requires some memorandums of understanding and everybody kind of being on the same page, but we don't want nonprofit status to be a barrier. The one thing I will say is the collection needs to be in the public domain. We've had folks that have approached us about private collections that they have. For us, and that's why I have it in those yellow letters, public access is super important. We know that researchers and teachers and students have always been really important populations for moving the collections conversation along, but they are tenacious folks, as they should be. That's why everybody loves them so much. They will get at what they need to get at in order to do their work. The general population, however, we got lots of things we can click on. We've got plenty of things that are blinking at us on the screens. And so if they don't have a path or a way to get at a collection, they probably are going to wander off. So that's one of the things. It has to be in the public domain or be able to be accessed by the public. A private collection doesn't have that status. So that's one of the things we look at. It has to be located in the Chicago metro region. We've had requests from folks that it's about Chicago, but it's on the East Coast. We want it to be in Chicago. And it has to be rooted in underrepresented narratives of the Chicago region. And organizations have to be able to show that they have ongoing human and financial resources dedicated to their collections efforts. And by that, I mean, particularly because with some of the non-traditional collecting organizations, they might have an archive or a collection they want to work with, but they don't really have anybody that somebody can contact to be able to get access to it, or they might not have any other additional financial resources to be able to make sure that the collection stays in good care. It doesn't mean it has to be a full-time person. It doesn't mean that it has to be a lot of money, but we do want to see that there is an ongoing relationship with the archive and the collection so that people can get at it and so that it stays in good care. And after a conversation, and I will say sometimes it takes a couple conversations. It isn't uncommon that an organization comes in, it's like, we want to do something, but we're not exactly sure what. We'll talk about it. We'll kind of figure out what makes sense for the organization, what's a fit for our strategy. And then we might have a follow-up conversation beyond that. But ultimately, strong proposals, and by proposals, I mean conversations, will be invited to submit an application. We don't want folks putting in a ton of work without the expectation that they have a good chance of getting funding. We don't fund every application. It goes through a review panel, it goes through our board, but we want to make sure that if it's not a fit or it doesn't have a good chance, I try to be a really straight shooter that way. I'll let you know that that's the case because I don't want folks investing time because I know time is a very precious commodity. Next slide, please. I think we're bringing it on home. Yep. I just wanted to mention briefly, we also have, we have our collection strategy. And as I mentioned, we do land conservation. We also support our arts organizations here in Chicago through a strategy called GenOps Plus. And again, it's for arts organizations with budgets under $1 million. We support all disciplines and traditions. So with that, I mean, it does not have to be kind of the Eurocentric lens. We're interested in all of the ways that art is being made. But this next one is important. It's organizations that support career artists. And by career artists, I mean people who, if you ask them what they do for a living, even though it might not pay all their bills, they're going to say, I'm an artist in whatever discipline that they're in. It's also focused on Chicago metro area. That's what's important to us. The Donnelly family is originally from this area. And again, same as with collections, either a 501c3 nonprofit or fiscally sponsored by a 501c3. And then I'll just wind it up with saying, we give general operating funds. We practice trust-based philanthropy. We don't need to look over your shoulder. You know how to spend the money way better than we do. This is about giving you resources. If you need to pay the light bill, pay the light bill. If you want to pay your artist, but you're the folks who know where those investments need to go. We also do multi-year commitments. Right now it's a 3-year cycle for groups because we also know that just helps your stability when you're able to plug a number into your budget. And we also offer technical assistance workshops, a cash reserve program, which is about helping organizations build some cash assets, kind of like a rainy day fund. And we also do group convenings of arts leaders. And instead of having individual progress reports, which is a lot of paperwork for everybody, instead what we do is we convene groups of about 20 arts leaders, either because through their disciplines, or it might be about a particular topic. And we have a conversation for an hour or a little bit more, which helps me keep abreast of what's important in the field, but it's also a great way for arts leaders to share information amongst themselves and to make connections. And I think the last slide, Tanya, is just my contact info. Yep, the 2 deadlines, April Fool's Day, because that's always a good time to have a deadline. We have one on April 1st, and that, just so you know the timing of that, you get the decision in July from that one. And then we have a July 29th deadline, and you get the decision from that in November. And again, you can look on our website, and there's my email address again. Always happy to have a conversation, always happy to have folks send an email. Part of my job should be being accessible, and I'm really happy to do that. And that's my spiel.
Thank you. Sorry, everyone. I was having some issues with my screen. Thank you, Ellen. That was really great. And it's great to hear about all the opportunities, the things that you're already funding. Glad to hear there's already some connections that have been made in the room. I'm going to move right along and pass it to Mark Hallett, the Director of Grants Programs with Illinois Humanities, and I will share my screen as well for your presentation, Mark.
Tanya, can you all hear me? Cool, thank you. Wow, Ellen, I have to say that was so inspiring. I mean, honestly, just hearing you talk through the values that are important to you all and the processes and how they match, etc. I'm really like, that was actually really powerful. Even the page that you apologized before for, because it was a lot of text, was really, really rich. So thank you so much. That was great. Let me see. I haven't done this before. So my name is Mark Hallett. I'm Director of Grants Programs at Illinois Humanities. I've been here or there, I'm at home, for about 6.5 years. Before that, I headed journalism grant making at the McCormick Foundation. I turned 60 on April 30th. I have a bald top of my head and a white COVID, for some reason those two kind of go together, beard. I'm wearing white glasses, which I thought were really stylish, but they're not getting the greatest reviews on the home front. Just a little bit with you guys. Dark sweater. Behind me is a painting that I did of the farm that I lived on in Norway when I was a little kid. So anyway, that's a little bit of kind of the visual scene, I think. And as Ellen said, it's wonderful to be here today, and thanks for the invitation, Tanya. Beautiful. Next slide. Yeah, so Illinois Humanities, our mission is to strengthen the social, political, and economic fabric of the state of Illinois through constructive conversation and community engagement. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but this slide kind of shows you that we are a nonprofit. We're a 501c3 that does a lot of sort of our own kind of programming and partnering in various ways, and that our grants program is a program, you know, amongst others, if that makes sense. Really quickly, under education, and I'm definitely not going to go through all of these, the Odyssey Project is a long-term program that's now in its 20th. This year is its 20th anniversary. It's a free college credit course in the humanities for income-eligible adults. We have 5 Odyssey programs happening at any time across the city of Chicago, 2 of them in Spanish, Proyecto Odisea. It's a life-changing experience. I've interviewed Odyssey alums and it's really powerful. Sojourner Scholars is actually quite similar, but for high school students on the south and west sides of the city. And then one more program that we head up is the Gwendolyn Brooks Youth Poetry Awards. Going back to 2017, we've been partnering with Nora Brooks Blakely, Gwendolyn's daughter, on this annual K through 12, so it's for young people, as the name implies, statewide poetry program. Under public programs, there's actually more than the 2 listed here. The Country and the City is an initiative that basically brings together leaders from rural Illinois as well as urban Illinois on a regular basis. And I have to say, as a city kid, it's really amazing how many of the challenges that inner city Chicago faces are really similar to the disinvestment happening throughout rural communities. Envisioning Justice is an initiative where we partner with 7 community groups throughout the city to bring together artists and humanists to imagine a criminal justice system that is actually just. I know that sounds like I'm editorializing, but it's really, it's there. It's very inspiring. We've worked with Let Us Breathe Collective, Circles and Ciphers, and others. This year, we're actually expanding that program to work with 6 communities throughout the state of Illinois, and that's also really powerful. So the grant making programs, and this is what I'm going to focus on, especially the first 2, our community grants program and the micro grants. We also have a grants program in the Envisioning Justice initiative that I mentioned. And last year and this year, we've been a fairly high volume pass-through grant maker with national federal money with state money, as well as private donations. So I'm not going to go into that because there's no upcoming deadline or hook for it, but we'll talk about the other two. Next slide, Tanya. A lot of our work, though it's decidedly involving the humanities, involves artists quite a bit. And so I wanted to share with you our two Public Humanities awardees for 2021 were Tanika Lewis-Johnson and Dawoud Bey. Both are very respected and brilliant photographers, but they both use themes that we think of as humanities themes, history, community identity, etc., in really creative work ways in their work. So I just wanted to share that. Next slide. So first of all, the community grants, which is sort of our longest standing grants program. So if you want to switch to the next slide, that'd be great. Beautiful. So the community grants have 3 deadlines, as you can see here: January, May, and September. Everything that we do is digital. We begin with a letter of inquiry or letter of intent. And that's basically to make it easier for applicants who don't end up sort of going through the full process, if that makes sense. And then with a select group of groups, we move to a full proposal stage. The entire process takes between 8 and 10 weeks from the beginning deadline until groups are notified. There are basically 3 categories of funding. The first is vision or planning grants. We've opened up the planning grants to include evaluation initiatives, as well as DEI work, diversity, equity, and inclusivity work. The second category, and this is where the bulk of our grants happen or take place, are action grants, which are essentially for projects, and they're humanities or public humanities based programs. In particular, where a group is trying out something new, trying to attract and engage with new audiences, to use new digital tools, etc. Those go up to $4,000. And our third category is the multiplier category, and those are essentially for significant partnerships between organizations, and those go up to $8,000. So next slide. So I wanted to give a couple of examples. So an example of a vision grant, and again, these are the planning grants, was the group Chicago Books to Women in Prison. They led a really interesting initiative with incarcerated women who've taken part in their programs. And they did both survey and focus group work to see how women were using the books that they made available, whether the topics that they were able to come up with met the needs of the women, and learned a lot about ways that their programming could be better, as well as what sort of topics in books seem to resonate more and have since adjusted their programs accordingly, etc. The second category are the action grants. So again, these are the project grants and the bulk of what we give. The Chicago Poetry Center created a digital curriculum for teachers who work in K-12 schools, and who want to incorporate poetry into the classroom. And so they've actually just finished their digital curriculum, and it's out. It's they're, as implied by their name, a Chicago-based group, but the curriculum will be useful and helpful to teachers throughout the state, since it's based on state teaching standards. And an example of a multiplier grant, the group Forefront, which some of you might know as Donors Forum, its old name, created a peer skill share for nonprofits to help one another out in different ways. And with our funding, they took that skill share to the statewide level, basically. And so it's where groups who are facing challenges can turn to their counterparts at other nonprofits for help. And it's a really actually inspiring program, I think, and has led to a lot of groups beginning conversations around specific challenges, but ended up in a number of cases, partnering on other initiatives. Great, next slide. Thank you, Tanya. Cool. So next I wanted to talk about the Activate History microgrants. So this is a program that we started about 1.5 years ago in March of last year. The goal is essentially to help inspire stewards of local collections and archives to explore creative community engagement. The stipends or grants, if you like, for these projects is $500. We also include an accessibility stipend of up to $250 to help out. There are 2 deadlines, March 1st and September 1st. We take 3 weeks to a month to determine funding. Next slide. And so a few examples of the Activate History micro grants. Black and Pink Chicago is doing a project where they're collecting civil commitment stories and archives from a number of carceral institutions across the state, and then engaging audiences in better understanding civil commitment and what it means and its impact on people's lives. Jose Luis Benavides is leading an initiative which is really interesting. It's based on a 1977 exhibit called Anishinaabe Wakiatzlan, which was a coming together of Latinx and Native American artists and activists. And not everyone, but almost everyone who helped to organize the original exhibition, which took place at Truman College, or exhibited work, is still around. And they've held a number of convenings virtual, because this is this year, with people to share their impressions of this and recollections of this exhibit and the historical context that led to it, etc. And it's actually been a really powerful series. The New Philadelphia Association. New Philadelphia is a town in southwest Illinois that was actually founded in 1836 by a former enslaved man and who had become a businessman and founded this town and then purchased the freedom of family members. It's really a remarkable Illinois story that's not very well known. The town doesn't exist today per se, but its memory does. And a number of family members, as well as friends of New Philadelphia, are doing their best to help continue to research the original story, but also to share that research out in a number of ways. And so they applied and received an Activate History grant. And then finally, another example, Terry Hardy. Terry Hardy is remarkable. He is a motorcyclist and very committed to civic engagement. And so he runs a small nonprofit called Ride for Change, Ride for Hope. And Terry was a photojournalist in the early 1980s and did some really remarkable work. And so he's been holding sessions to share that work and discuss the time period, etc. Great, Tanya, next slide. So with regards to the Activate History program, we also, I guess, take a broad definition of what constitutes an archive, and maybe you could hear that already in the examples that I gave. But in addition to sort of what we think of as a traditional archive, we include interviews, photos, public art, stories, etc. And yes, archives can be digital as well as material. Next slide. So who's eligible for Activate History? Basically tax exempt organizations, which is a little bit broader than 501c3, meaning that it might be a nonprofit organization that does not have 501c3 status. But for this program, we've also opened it up to individuals. And this is probably true for the bulk of our grant making, more broadly speaking. We have a preference toward working with smaller organizations, meaning organizations with budgets of $400,000 or less. And as I said earlier, individuals can also apply for Activate History microgrants. For-profit businesses, political parties. Let's see who else. There are a number of groups that can't apply. Beautiful. Next slide. And just a couple other sort of items to mention. So we just moved to a new platform for us, Foundant, which we're getting great feedback from our partners on. Accessibility: with all of our grants, we include a stipend for groups to do American Sign Language or cart captioning, etc. We work with the Covey group on facilitation training, which I'll talk about in a moment. We do a monthly spotlight feature on a different grantee and basically conduct an interview with them and share that out. We try to provide support to grantees using social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, etc., and love it when groups take advantage and let us know when an event is about to happen so that we can help get the word out. And then finally, capacity building workshops. We've provided workshops last year, this year, and actually next year are going to be ramping this up significantly. We always try to work with grantees to use survey work to help determine topics that are meaningful for them, but also to highlight their experiences and successes in the workshops that we provide. Next slide. Next slide on the facilitation trainings. So facilitation training is actually, and again, this is with the Covey group, Kelly Covey and Rebecca Brown, is something we've provided to all of our partners since 2017. It's actually really, really popular. And so almost all of the public humanities initiatives or projects that we help support involve some community engagement piece. And we're finding that really honing those skills to develop, so that you're leading dialogue that develops insight and understanding, that develops relationships among participants, and that deepens a sense of commitment and agency are really, really valued. And so we offer these trainings, but then what we call clinics. So some months after going through a training, people are welcome to sign up for a clinic. And that's where you can share what experiences you've since had leading meetings, et cetera, and what you've learned from it. So we found this to be really, really helpful. Next slide. And that's it. I just want to repeat that I was really inspired by Ellen's presentation, and I would say that we also really do our best to work with the grantees, the groups that we fund, and consider them partners and thought partners, and that we try really hard to just be an open door. And when obstacles come up to a project, that happens to all of us, and so we really value those relationships a lot. Anyway, thank you.
Thanks, Mark. That was really great. Appreciate you sharing all the examples so that folks can get the best idea of what kinds of opportunities you support. And then lastly, we have Zachary Wittenberg, the Arts Program Officer from the Richard H. Driehaus Foundation. And Zach, if you're okay sharing your own screen, you can go ahead.
Tanya, I think I might need permission to share.
Got it. Give me 1 second. Okay, you should be able to now.
Super. Thank you so much. And thank you to Mark and Ellen. Tough acts to follow, and two people that I've had the pleasure of crossing paths with and working with for a few years in a number of different capacities and with a variety of hats on my head. I am currently sitting in front of a window in downtown Chicago. And I am a middle-aged white man wearing what was recently described to me as a butterscotch colored sweater and a brown sport coat. And my name is Zach Wittenberg, and for about 2 months now, I have had the pleasure of being one of 2 new arts program officers at the Richard H. Driehaus Foundation. My pronouns are he, him, and I offer greetings from a place known today as Chicago, which is located on traditional unceded homelands of the Council of the Three Fires, the Odawa, Ojibwe, and Potawatomi people. Many additional tribes and peoples call this region of Northeast Illinois home. On behalf of everyone here at the Driehaus Foundation, I want to thank Marcia Walker-McWilliams, Tanya Calvin, and everyone at BMRC for the invitation to participate in today's event. So with the time that we have together, I want to share some of the ways that archives, collections, and legacy management show up in the work of organizations that we support. And while preparing for today, I listened to a podcast and I wanted to share the following quote. It's only by collecting diverse stories that we can begin to see what unites us. Generally speaking, archives and collections find support through the Driehaus Arts and Culture Program or our regranting partnership with the John D. and Catherine D. MacArthur Foundation. I'll share more a bit later about the pathways into each of those programs, but in short, Driehaus Arts and Culture grants fulfill a fairly specific set of guidelines in arts service, convening, events, and initiatives, while the MacArthur Driehaus program makes general operating grants to organizations that serve Chicagoans. Among roughly 200 organizations in the Driehaus and MacArthur Driehaus portfolios combined, we are proud to support organizations that provide services and visibility for local organizations with archives and collections. And 2 examples of that would be Chicago Collections Consortium and the Chicago Cultural Alliance. Collect and make accessible culturally specific histories and materials, such as the Chinatown Museum Foundation, the Mitchell Museum of the American Indian, and the National Cambodian Heritage Museum and Killing Fields Memorial. And which gather and steward archives and collections that are unique to Chicago and its communities, such as the Chicago Dance History Project, Chicago Film Archives, Gerber Hart Library and Archives, and Shorefront Legacy Center. I imagine many of you with us today are familiar with at least some of those organizations. I know we have people from some of those organizations with us here in the house. Thank you for coming. And I know a few of them have also worked in collaboration with BMRC. Chicago Collections Consortium is online at chicagocollections.org, and fans of BMRC might have attended the partner program discussion with Chicago's new directors earlier this year. Next year, it celebrates its 10th anniversary with more than 60 member organizations working together to preserve Chicago's history and promote its diverse communities. It recently welcomed new members, the Chicago Transit Authority and the Poetry Foundation, and launched curriculum guides for teachers. Its new media partners include 60 Inches from Center and My Block, My Hood, My City. Its digital exhibits include a focus on the 1963 Chicago Public Schools boycott, curated by fellow grantee Media Burn and produced in collaboration with Cartemquin Films, the Chicago History Museum, and UIC Special Collections and Archives. 10 members of the Chicago Cultural Alliance participate in the work of Chicago Collections. A Driehaus Arts and Culture grantee, the Alliance is likewise a consortium of about 40 cultural heritage museums, centers, and societies in 30 Chicago neighborhoods and 9 suburbs, representing 30 world cultures. In response to the pandemic, the Alliance canceled public events such as its World Dumpling Fest, pictured here, instead hosting virtual town halls on COVID impact and monthly workshops for museum and cultural professionals. You might have seen its advocacy efforts on behalf of house museums in residential neighborhoods, including the Emmett Till and Mamie Till Mobley House in Woodlawn. The Alliance has also worked recently with the Field Museum and the Department of Cultural Affairs and Special Events at the City of Chicago to bring BIPOC and immigrant voices to the table as Chicago considers the future of its monuments and memorials. MacArthur Driehaus grantee, the Chinatown Museum Foundation, operates the Chinese American Museum of Chicago. Also approaching its 20th anniversary, it advances the appreciation of Chinese American culture and preserves the past, present, and future of Chinese Americans in the Midwest. Postponed due to the pandemic, its exhibition, Chinese Cuisine in America, Stories, Struggles, and Successes, is scheduled to open in 2022. And as a sort of preview, the museum produced the mini exhibit, Era of Opulence, Chinese Fine Dining, which you see here. Since the onset of the pandemic, the museum has focused its efforts on combating hate, racism, and xenophobia, and is working to ensure The public school curricula adequately and accurately represent and include information about the history of Asian populations in the United States. The Mitchell Museum of the American Indian is one of only a handful of museums in the United States focused exclusively on the culture and history of Indigenous and First Nation people. Like many museums, the Mitchell had to rethink its operations due to COVID. It began this work with partners to develop virtual field trips and programs. Its 11th Dr. Carlos Montezuma Lecture and Awards honored 3 Indigenous young people, and in collaboration with the American and Canadian Bar Associations, it offered a virtual presentation of the play Sliver of a Full Moon, after which a discussion was attended and participated in by US Secretary of the Interior, Deb Haaland. The Mitchell Museum is developing a community medicine garden, and it recently worked with Evanston officials on the city's proclamations for Native American Heritage Month and Indigenous Peoples Day. It is currently retooling exhibit content to include more contemporary representation and a broader focus on local Indigenous cultures and societal issues. The National Cambodian Heritage Museum and Killing Fields Memorial grew out of the Cambodian Association of Illinois, established in 1976 to respond to the needs of people fleeing the atrocities of the Khmer Rouge. The only museum of its kind in the United States, it opened in 2004, and its permanent exhibition, Remembering the Killing Fields, prompted Illinois to become the first state to formally adopt the Cambodian Day of Remembrance in 2012. The organization presents itself as a living museum. Within each exhibit are opportunities for reflection and dialogue that serve as tools for healing and understanding. And the museum's collaborators include ceramicists, dancers, mask makers, mental health experts, musicians, sculptors, and storytellers. It also works with the American Indian Center, the Chicago Cultural Alliance, the Documentation Center of Cambodia, Enrich Chicago, the Illinois Holocaust Museum and Education Center, and UChicago School of Social Service Administration. Using an oral history approach complemented by documentation and preservation, the Chicago Dance History Project has completed more than 130 interviews and produced 35 public programs to date. It aims to honor national and international dance artists with roots in Chicago, surface lesser-known stakeholders that anchor the city's strong local dance community, and link historical practices with audiences both today and tomorrow. Its pilot program for digitizing film and video and preserving more than 6 decades of materials is supported by Ellen and her colleagues at the Gaylord and Dorothy Donnelly Foundation. This pilot was followed by another 430 hours of footage processing supported by the Illinois Arts Council Agency. And Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot proclaimed January 31st of this year, Chicago Dance History Day, on which the project live streamed 8 hours of interviews with 46 guests to an audience from around the world. Speaking of digitization, Chicago Film Archives began its work in 2003 to house, preserve, and make accessible the Chicago Public Library's collection of 16mm films. Now a custodian of these and additional materials, it built a climate-controlled vault, and it has acquired more than 40,000 items from more than 200 collections, including films by DeWitt Beale, like the one you see here. The open source collections management system CFA built provides access to more than 1,800 films via chicagofilmarchives.org, and its public screenings have been held at venues all over Chicago, from the Black Cinema House to the Block Museum, not to mention Berlin, London, Miami, and elsewhere. 2 days ago, CFA secured its 2nd successful nomination of a film for the National Film Registry at the Library of Congress, Howard Alk's 1971 documentary, The Murder of Fred Hampton. Only 25 films are added to the National Registry each year, and the fact that CFA has successfully secured 2 additions to that registry is quite an accomplishment. Gerberhardt Library and Archives, some of whose holdings you see here, believes that knowledge is the key to dispelling homophobia. In a safe atmosphere, it meets the information needs of its community and is committed to acquiring, preserving, and disseminating materials that embody LGBTQ+ cultures and histories. Gerberhardt recently joined the Chicago Collections Consortium and is rejoining Reaching Across Illinois Library System, aka RAILS, to increase traffic through interlibrary loans. It has digitized Chicago LGBTQ+ newspapers from 1972 to 1980 and has since moved on to digitizing earlier papers going back to at least 1952, while filling in the gap between 1980 and the present. Within the last 2 years, its collaborators have included the Black Lesbian Archives and Pride Heritage Committee, and it offered a living will and powers of attorney workshop with the Center for Disability and Elder Law. Last, only alphabetically in this category, and certainly not least, I'm happy to share a bit with you all about Shorefront Legacy Center in Evanston, as well as online at shorefrontlegacy.org. Shorefront works to educate people about Black history in Chicago's North Shore suburbs. Through its work beginning in the mid-1990s with one file folder of clippings, Shorefront has processed and made available around 200 linear feet of documentation. Donations, mostly from North Shore residents and families, expand its holdings by approximately 20% each year. These are processed by interns who earn college and university credits, while graduate students build upon Shorefront Voice, its collection of oral history interviews. In addition to BMRC, it works locally with DuSable Museum of African American History and nationally with the Smithsonian Institution in Washington, D.C. As part of Evanston's fact-finding effort related to the city's move toward reparations, city officials commissioned a report on policies and practices that affected Black residents. Co-written by Dino Robinson and Jenny Thompson, of the Evanston History Center, the report was referenced by numerous media outlets who also shared images from Shorefront's archives. So as you saw on the slides, most of our support for archives and collections happens within the MacArthur Treehouse program. That program provides general operating support on 2 cycles each year through an open application process. If you're considering applying for the first time, I encourage you to first review the funding guidelines on our website at driehausfoundation.org. And if eligible, organizations with expenses below $150,000 should apply by January 18th, and that application is open right now. I should mention, as Alan did as well, that this program does not require 501c3 nonprofit status. MacArthur Treehouse does support a number of organizations who have fiscal sponsors, such as Fractured Atlas, for example. Organizations with actual expenses between $150,000 and $500,000 can apply beginning in March on a May 2 deadline for cycle 2. Treehouse Arts and Culture follows a narrower set of criteria, and there is no open application for those grants. To learn more, you want to follow the process on our website at driehausfoundation.org/guidelines. And in general, these requests need to fit into at least one of 4 categories. Arts service programs that are focused exclusively on increasing the capacity or collective impact of Chicago-based organizations. Local arts service organizations whose primary mission is to serve creative endeavors in the city of Chicago. National convenings hosted in Chicago that are art service oriented and which build the capacity of smaller nonprofits. And events and initiatives that are both uniquely Chicago in nature and which elevate the city's regional, national, or international profile. These grants support the execution of fully developed initiatives as opposed to those that are in the research and development phase, pre-production phase, or startup phase. I am extremely honored to be part of a team led by Senior Program Director Sue Ellen Burns that also includes Program Officer Anita Alexander and my fellow Arts Program Officer Arush Shakil. You can email any of us at firstname@driehausfoundation.org. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Zach, and thank you to all of our panelists. I really appreciate everything you shared today, and I'm sure folks have questions. We're running a little bit behind on time, so I'm going to shorten each breakout room to a little bit less than 10 minutes. I'll give you a couple minutes warning when there's about 2 or 3 minutes left in each session, and then let you know when the 10 minutes are up. But you can feel free. I'm going to open the breakout rooms now. And if you go to where it says breakout rooms on the bottom of your screen, you might have to click the 3 dots, the ellipses, but you can open the breakout rooms and select join next to any of the rooms that are already open. So I see Mark is joining the Illinois Humanities ones. Ellen and Zach will join their respective ones as well. And then you can just go ahead.
Hi, this is Margaret. Okay. No. Okay, we're going sharing. Breakout room. Showing.
Welcome back, everyone. Thank you to everyone who's been able to stay. I know it's the end of the day and folks are getting ready to head home or head out to dinner, whatever your evening plans are. Thank you to our panelists again, Mark, Zach, and Ellen, for everything that you shared today. I hope the breakout rooms were helpful. I know I'm closing them out a little bit early, but it seems that people have made the connections that they need to make. And I'm hoping that y'all will be able to email or call after this and talk about some projects. I'm going to share quickly in the chat the link to our feedback form for this event. So you can copy and paste that into your browser, and please fill out our feedback form so that we know how to do better in our future events. And then the recorded parts of this session today, the presentations will be posted online, and I'll send out that link to everyone who registered as well. Thank you, everyone, and have a great evening.
Thank you, Tanya. It's been a wonderful time. And send me the survey in an email.
Sounds good. There will be a follow-up email that I'll be sending
Thank
tomorrow
you.
with feedback.
Have a good one. My pleasure.
Thanks so much, Tanya.
Thank you,
Thanks,
everyone.
Thank you,
everybody.
Tanya. Great meeting
Bye,
everyone.
guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.